In the vast and often invisible machinery of global food logistics, there's a chapter that moves not in tons of grain or liters of fuel, but in heartbeats. Each year, over 12.2 million calves are transported across countries and continents, not by digital pulses or conveyor belts, but through trucks, ships, and planes calibrated for mass, yet rarely for life. These animals move through environments built for rigidity, inside structures designed for stillness. Even though calves are not still, they are biological systems in constant motion, emitting heat, adjusting posture, reacting to sound and space. In logistical terms, they are not cargo. They are biocontainers on hooves. Unlike static goods, calves shift their weight continuously. Their center of gravity is not fixed, but breathes, pulses, and panics. This dynamic creates a paradox. In motion, while the vehicle moves as a single unit, the cargo resists unity. Every acceleration sends a ripple through muscle and bone. Every curve generates a momentary imbalance that reverberates through hundreds of bodies. This isn't just animal behavior, it's a mechanical challenge, because the physics of transporting calves are not far from the precision dynamics of autonomous tractors adjusting wheel load balance in real time. These machines correct for terrain variation in milliseconds. Meanwhile, the same level of adaptive engineering still hasn't reached the trucks that carry the most delicate form of cargo we have: life. There's a term in mining known as vibration damping, a critical process used to prevent fractures in extracted minerals during haulage. Multi-million-dollar dump trucks adjust their suspension constantly to preserve rocks. But in livestock transport, the damping of neuromuscular stress is still a speculative frontier. Floors are rigid, suspensions are crude. The calf, subject to each bump and vibration, absorbs the cost of our inattention. Neurophysiological feedback, a calf's real-time stress, remains a silent variable. And yet, this variable affects weight, mortality, immunity, and economic return. Temperature sensors are common, but what about heart rate variability? What about the subtle spikes in cortisol during sharp turns or sudden braking? These are not anecdotes. These are missed parameters in an engineering system that treats life like mass. The irony runs deep. In logistics designed for consistency, calves represent the ultimate inconsistency. They breathe, move, panic, recover. They're not numbers on a manifest. They are adaptive organisms under environmental pressure. And this leads us to a critical provocation. If a mining truck can adjust its suspension based on the texture and weight of ore, why are livestock floors still fixed? Why do we not differentiate stall pressure for calves based on age, fatigue curve, or weight class? Why do we trust metal to do what only sensors can read? In this video, we will trace the root of these millions of calves. We will dive into the physiological toll of travel, the overlooked role of biometric feedback, and the innovations that are slowly reshaping the future of animal transport. This isn't just a look inside a supply chain. It's a look into the quiet, complex intelligence required to move life across the globe. Because behind every steak, every leather belt, every cut of veal, there was once a living animal on a vibrating floor, crossing a border, adapting in real time, unseen but essential. A calf in transit is not just a passenger. It's a bundle of neurological and metabolic reactions, constantly adjusting to every shift in the environment. And yet, much of the transport system still treats these animals as if they were inert cargo. Ventilation systems, for instance, often operate on static airflow rates calibrated to external temperature. But these systems do not account for what truly defines animal well-being in motion: the surge of stress hormones triggered not by heat, but by kinetic stimuli. When a truck accelerates abruptly or brakes without warning, it's not just a mechanical act, it's a physiological shift. Inside the trailer, calves experience spikes in cortisol, brief but frequent, that signal distress and suppress. These episodes occur silently, and their cumulative impact on animal health and weight retention is substantial. yet the systems meant to protect them remain blind. This is where technology begins to rewrite the rules. Biometric collars, once confined to research labs, are now emerging as real-time stress monitors for livestock. By measuring vagal tone, a subtle indicator of the nervous system's balance, these devices can predict stress accumulation before it manifests as disease or weight loss. It's not just about data, it's about anticipation. With every kilometer traveled, these collars transform the calf from a passive unit into a monitored one that communicates, one that signals through its own biology when the logistics are fit. Cold climates add another layer of complexity. Calves under 120 kilograms, still in delicate developmental phases, show a consistent pattern. They lose 5.8% more body mass per hour in colder environments compared to controlled warm conditions, not because of external temperature alone, but because of this involuntary response consumes glycogen at a rate that depletes energy reserves, reduces feed conversion efficiency, and compounds stress. The result is not just lower weight it's lower immunity, higher susceptibility to infection, and in severe cases, transport-related mortality. The truck's ambient temperature might be within range, but the calf's core, temperature, metabolic output, and muscle strain tell a different story, one that rarely gets. In recent years, some logistics operators have begun to listen. In Australia, a major cattle export operation introduced shock-damping floors combined with preconditioning protocols, simulating motion for calves days before. The effect was durable. Mortality rates dropped by 31%. That's not just statistical success. It's proof that mechanical empathy can be engineered. That calves, like machines, respond better when systems anticipate their thresholds instead of reacting after damage. Which brings us to a deeper shifting. What if calf logistics were modeled on intensive care units? What if we monitored calves not by external conditions, but by internal, by organ zones, by neuromuscular load, by circulatory resistance? Livestock transport then becomes more movement. It becomes an act of adaptive precision, where the animal is not restrained by a cage, but supported by a system that reads and responds in time. This is the edge of agrologistics, not just stronger crates or faster routes, but smarter feedback, where every breath, tremor, and heartbeat shapes the decision. Because a calf that survives transit isn't just one that arrives. It's one that arrives intact, physiologically, neurologically, and economically viable. And to get there, we must stop thinking in terms of boxes and trailers. We must start thinking in terms of systems and Before we continue, take a moment to check the pinned code. If you're fascinated by the technology shaping how we move life itself across continents, what you'll find there might surprise you. It's something we've crafted with the same care and precision we admire in these systems, built for those who truly appreciate the engineering behind the scenes. Behind every transport decision made livestock, there's a pattern, not mechanical, but human. In the cab of the truck, at the loading bay, on the ship's manifest desk, small choices accumulate. Some are rooted in experience, others tuition. And while that human touch is often essential in long-distance calf logistics, it can also introduce critical inconsistencies. One of the most impactful involves hydration. Drivers and handlers frequently delay rehydration stops based not on biometric data, but on habit, on route familiarity, or assumptions about tolerance. These delays may span just 2, but during that time, the calf's internal hydration curve is already declining, quietly compounding stress and indigestion. It's here that artificial intelligence begins to reshape protocol. Emerging systems are now capable of simulating hydration decay, curves for calves in motion, using input variables like breed, weight, age, and accumulated vibration. These aren't mere dashboards. They're real-time decision engines. If the model detects that a group's hydration curve is projected to cross a physiological threshold, loading can be blocked automatically. Regardless of scheduling pressure, the system enforces biology over convenience. Not because it's smarter, but because it listens to the calf, the clock. These tools are antithetical. In fleets integrating predictive hydration alerts, survival rates in sea to land, transitions have increased more than twofold for Bos Taurus calves, not because the sea became calmer, not because the voyage became shorter, but because the timing of water administration stopped depending on instinct and began depending on analytics. Micro decisions, once invisible, became visible, measurable. At a major logistics node in the Middle East, a shift to automated hydration events based on motion and stress metrics led to a dramatic drop in mortality. From 5.2% to 0.8%, the calves weren't tougher, they weren't smoother. What changed? Control system. Hydration became not a manual gesture, but an environmental response governed by biometric urgency. Each spray of water, each pause in motion, corresponded to an internal need, not a logistical convenience. This change in logic reframes the geography of livestock transport. Fixed stopovers, once a default, become obsolete. With heat stress, maps dynamically synced to GPS and real-time weather data, hydration zones can shift by the hour. Drivers no longer rely on memory or mapped intervals. They respond to signals, a stress cluster detected in a high-temperature corridor, a deceleration point near a rising humidity front, a shift in behavioral posture captured by onboard sensors. Livestock, in this new logic, travels not just on moist roads, but within live data networks that adapt every few kilometers. And this is the heart of the transformation. The human role doesn't vanish, it evolves. From operator to orchestrator, from guesswork to guided action. Because in a system where each calf is a living, adapting variable, success depends not on rigid plans, but on real-time interpretation. And that interpretation must come from somewhere beyond the senses. From systems designed to translate biology into logistics, and logistics into survival. In the age of precision agriculture, the soil no longer dictates the outcome alone. Sensors do. Modern planters adjust their seeding force by the millisecond, responding to minute changes in soil resistance, moisture, and compaction. Each seed is treated not as a generic input, but as a variable in a live equation. Meanwhile, livestock, living, sensing, adapting organisms, are still moved as if the only factor worth monitoring is outside temperature. The dissonance is striking. If we can apply real-time mechanical logic to the land beneath our machines, why do we not apply the same to the animals within our machines? Livestock trucks, ships, and aircraft must evolve into systems of dynamic biophysical calibration. That means adjusting not just for ambient conditions, but for biometric feedback. Stall pressure must change with body fatigue. Light levels must adapt to circadian stress. Acoustic environments must dampen frequencies proven to elevate calf anxiety. These are not luxuries. They are the natural progression of a logistics chain that dares to claim the word intelligent. A system cannot be intelligent if it ignores the signals of the very life it transports. Some are already paving that future. At Dutch Livestock Air, aircraft designed for high-value calf transport integrate sensors that monitor body temperature, joint movement, and breath rhythm mid-flight. If oxygen saturation falls, the cabin adjusts. If vibration passes a neurological threshold, the stabilization system recalibrates. The aircraft doesn't just fly, it listens. In these moments, animal logistics ceases to be a compromise and becomes something more. A collaboration between biology and engineering. This requires a reframing of cargo. Calves are not passive units of mass. They are neurological systems in dynamic adaptation. They produce heat, sound, and stress. They respond to light, pressure, and time. And the systems we build around them must recognize that. We can no longer afford to think in terms of containment. We must think in terms of communication. Because every hour a calf travels, it sends a signal, and every ignored signal becomes a cost in weight, in health, in ethic. If precision agriculture is the future of planting, then dynamic ethological transport must be the future of livestock movement, not as a matter of idealism, but as a matter of efficiency, as a matter of survival, as a matter of respect for the life that sustains the food. And so we are left with a final provocation. If a planter can calibrate force and depth for every individual seed, why are 12.2 million calves moved each year without calibrating for their neuromuscular stress threshold? In every machine that feeds us, there is intelligence. In every root that moves life, there must be life. Because agriculture isn't just about what we grow, it's about how we move, what grows. And in that movement, every heartbeat counts. And before you go, don't miss the pinned comment. It's something different, but worth a look. Just trust the instinct to click.